And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. I'm back this week, finally, and we are here to recap episode 5 of season 43. What's up, Ryan? It's been a couple weeks. Excited to catch up and discuss what's been an interesting season so far.
Yeah, Dylan wasn't here last week. He was too busy going to Chuck E. Cheese and playing skee ball and hitting the gritty. That's why Dylan wasn't here last week.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got a lot to talk about in terms of that. There's been a lot of funny moments. And the gameplay has been a little bit curious. So can't wait to get into that. We have a lot to talk about for sure.
Dylan, the gameplay has been secondary to some of these characters and some of these moments. I mean, we were texting before the podcast and I was like, this feels like Gabon 2.0. Some of these players are just train wrecks. We have a lot of questionable decisions to go over, people playing suboptimally. Can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. Let's get into this 5th episode. Want to just mention once again that if you are watching live, first of all, thank you, but hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and also be sure to ask any questions you got. We will be sure to answer them at the end of when we finish talking and recap about the episode. We'll be sure to answer all your questions. So if you're here, if you're watching, be sure to ask any questions if you have. But let's get going. So we'll go through it, pretty chronologically, but I guess we could start before that at who was voted out last night, and that was Gio. Felt like it's been kind of I don't want to say a long time coming, but at least since last episode, we've definitely been foreshadowed that Gio could possibly be in trouble. As we remember last week, Gio was supposed to be the vote, at least it seemed, up until Lindsay kind of went crazy paranoid. And it seems that based on exit interviews and things that have happened, it seems like Gio, for the first however many days he was there, was supposed to be the target pretty much every time, and they just kept winning. So this was almost like it was long overdue almost, and it was like finally they were like, all right, we wanted to get this guy out for basically the entire game now, like we're just gonna do it now. But of course, there's a lot that happened, that led up to that, a lot of reasons why. And I'm excited to get into that. But what are your initial reactions?
Yeah, I guess like Thanos would say, it was inevitable. But basically, I did watch the exit interviews as well, and I saw that one thing Gio mentioned was he was immediately kind of like put under a microscope because in that first challenge, if you remember, they had to run down the beach and carry back a crate in the opener, and he didn't do that great carrying the crates, especially when he was put up next to, like, I think it was Sammy, and he was up next to Jesse or whoever it was. Like, he obviously wasn't, or Cody. So he wasn't as strong, and right away his tribe was like, oh, okay, well, he's a weak link. So you're right. Gio probably would have gone out first, second, third, had his tribe gone to tribal early on. And I think with Gio, you're right. It felt like it was coming. I mean, the edit wasn't doing him any favors, Dylan. The edit was him saying, I'm confident. This is the way it's going to go tonight. I feel like I'm running some stuff. And as a player, that would be my biggest nightmare, is to say that stuff in confessionals, no matter how much they prompt me to say, because I do not want to get the dodo edits if I'm the one going home and I'm proclaiming to run things. I think you would agree with me, Dylan, though, that this was the right move for the tribe. Like, for Carla and James, this was the right move.
Yeah, I think ultimately it was the right move. Like, I know a lot of viewers are very happy that the knowledge is power has officially been flushed out of the game before it even got some legs. So thank you to the Coco tribe for doing that for us. Yeah, I think ultimately it was the right move, right? Because, if Gio was in fact, clearly if they were planning on voting him out for a long time at this point, clearly there was something about him that was untrustworthy. I mean, he kept giving us in confessional saying, I came here to play. I want to play. I'm going to play hard. Like, clearly the rest of the tribe got that vibe for him. They wanted him out. So if you're Carla and you have a advantage, knowledge is power. If you have an idol and the knowledge is power advantage can take that idol from you, even if Gio does not know that you have the idol, if he ever finds out that you have the idol, I mean, that's something that you have to fear, knowing the type of player Gio is. Gio is somebody who seems like he really wanted to make a big move just immediately off the bat. So as soon as he found out that Carla had the idol, if that ever were to happen, how does Carla know that Gio is going to stay loyal and not turn his back and not make that big move? Because, one thing about the knowledge is power is it's meant to happen so that it's some big move in front of everybody at tribal, right? And if that gets in the hands of somebody as power hungry as Gio, I mean, that's dangerous no matter who it is, even if it's your biggest ally in the game. If if that person is power hungry like Gio, it could be a problem. So I think Karla ultimately made the right choice, and the tribe ultimately made the right choice. Now before we get to some other things, I want to present another side, which I didn't even think of, and I got to give credit to Stephen Fishback. I had heard him talking about this. There is an argument for them keeping Gio instead of Ryan, and that argument would be, well, Gio is already close to Karla. He was so close with Karla that he shared that he had the advantage with her.
True.
Now you get rid of Gio, you turn your back on Ryan, so Ryan is going to be very inclined to just jump ship at the merge, and now you only have 3 Cocos, assuming Ryan jumped ship. Whereas if you had just kind of laid low and said, all right, we're just going to bring Gio and get rid of Ryan, then you at least would have had Gio close to you and you would have had an extra number. Whereas now you isolate Ryan because he had no idea what was going on. And now Ryan's more likely to jump ship. I personally think that this is a valid argument. Ultimately, there's pros and cons of each way that they were going to go. I'm curious to know what you think of that opposing side.
Yeah, I heard Steven's argument as well. I think it does have some merit because I think you do want to go into the merge or whatever is going to happen next week with as many loyal members as you can, and isolating Ryan isn't great. So I do see his perspective there. I still feel like I'm with us in terms of our initial thoughts, which is it's the right move for 2 reasons. Number one, it's that Ryan and Gio are an obvious pair. Now, granted, you could argue, well, they're a shield in front of you. If yellow and red team up and they target blue tribe, they may go for the obvious pair in Ryan and Gio. But the problem is, like you just said, if Coco falls apart and they all splinter and people flip, you don't want Ryan and Gio flipping together because that's 2 people flipping against you. So I feel like getting out an obvious pair is a good move, number one. Number two, you're right as well with the knowledge is power, where I don't know how these people are so dumb. I don't want to be mean. I don't know, 3 times in a row, Dylan, 3 seasons in a row, we have knowledge is power. And each time somebody tells somebody else and it leads to their downfall. Liana tells someone, leads to her downfall. Drea tells, I think, Omer, it leads to Drea's downfall. Now Gio tells Karla and it leads to his downfall. I don't understand how it's in the name, Dylan. Knowledge is power. If you tell someone else, you're giving them power. So you do not say anything with this advantage. I don't know why people can't figure this out. And Karla did make the right move because if Gio ends up flipping, even though Gio did trust her, she could be like, well, he may want to steal my idol if he ever finds out about it. So I think it was good for those 2 reasons to get rid of Gio, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm on the side that it was definitely the right move to get rid of Gio. The other move potentially that was thrown around by James was getting rid of Cassidy, which would have made absolutely no sense. So I'm happy that did not come to fruition. He did mention, I have a feeling this was just for the dramatics and just for the confessional, that he was like, oh, well, Lindsay's doing this. Cassie's doing the same thing as Lindsay did. We could do the same thing to her. But like that realistically was never going to happen because you were not going to go, assuming that they don't know a merge is coming, you were not going to go risking 2-2 in terms of Coco numbers. And then also know that they have an advantage on the other side and could steal you. Like it would have just been a complete mess. So I'm happy that I can't believe that was even shown, that confessional, because it would have made absolutely no sense. But yeah, just wanted to clear that up for everyone listening.
Well, they fooled us last week. I know you weren't here last week. I'm curious to know really quickly before we get into the episode, if you got tricked last week. Did you think Lindsay was going to go home or Gio? Because I thought for sure it was a really bad misdirect, that Gio was so clearly gone, and then I was shocked it was Lindsay. So then this week when it's like, well, is it Gio or Cassie? I'm like, they're not going to do that to us 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, I thought Lindsay was staying also last week because I was like, it doesn't make too much sense to get rid of her. But I guess they figured they would still have the numbers, and now look where they are right now. They still have the numbers. So ultimately, I think it was fine. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that strong 3 goes going forward. And again, we could go into the chronologicals of the episode, but before we do that, I want to mention something about Cassidy here. Cassidy, you can't read into the edit these days. Sure. Clearly season 41 and 42, we had absolutely zero clue that either of them were going to be that either Erica or Marianne were going to be the winner. None of us were predicting anything near that until we maybe got to like the final 7.
Yeah.
in terms of Erica, even later than that. It was like we were still questioning if that was even possible before the finale. Marianne, we kind of got it at the final 7 once she made her big move. That being said, Cassidy is coming on pretty strong. I feel like she was giving off main character vibes last night for sure. And whether or not she's a potential winner this season, I don't know. But I feel pretty strongly about her becoming a big, important player on the season at this point. Whereas the first few episodes, we really didn't hear anything of her. And these last couple episodes, she's kind of slowly risen. And now she's in the Power Alliance of 3. Well, now they're merging. Apparently, or merging. We don't really know what's going on next week. We could talk about that in a little bit, but I just, whatever reason, she's giving me weird vibes that she's either gonna have a big move later this season, or she's gonna be a fan favorite, or she's gonna be potential sitting at the final 3. I don't know, but I'm getting good vibes from her in terms of gameplay for sure.
I like Cassidy. I think she has potential. In the preseason, she talked about how she feels like she can be mischievous and she can maneuver her way through the game. And I thought she always had that, aptitude for the game, honestly. I mean, I feel like on each tribe we have our key power players. Like obviously on blue, it's Carla and James, clearly. On yellow, you thought it was Ellie, but it's probably Sammy at this point. And then on the red tribe, you could argue it was Jesse. Now it might be Noelle and Dwight due to the advantage that they have. But basically, those are like the obvious players on each of the tribes. But you're right, though. Like last season, we're like, oh, it's Hai. Okay, no, it's Omer. No, it's Drea. Is it Mike? And then it's Marianne. So you're right. We have all these obvious players. Cassidy could easily rise up at the end. It would not surprise me at this point.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of her. Like yeah, for sure. Like I'm pretty high on her going forward. But let's go back to the beginning of the episode. Episode opens at Coco. Cassidy said she voted Lindsay, but she's not really happy with what happened. Gio, he admits to Cassidy that he wrote her name down. That was a little, weird little thing that was going on. There's just so much. There's so much there's so much everybody telling each other everything. It's like everything's the best right now. I hope gameplay cleans up a little bit once we get to the merge, and I think it will. But yeah, Cassie's talking about how she wanted Gio gone. Carla wanted to break up Ryan and Gio. Obviously, that happens, and then we move to Baka tribe where and I can't wait to get into the dynamics of this tribe.
Oh my god. Such a train. There's such a train wreck. I can't.
A lot of mess going on this season. So Ellie and Janine find a beware advantage. Now, before I even get into that, Davey, who we had on this podcast once, Davey from season 37, Dave vs. Goliath, he had an interesting tweet. He said, "This is the first time I've seen a beware advantage that was taken elsewhere before it was open. Are we even sure that's allowed to happen? Or do they have to just drop it right away if they don't want to take it? Like she took it and then ran away with it. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that when it happened, but you get what I mean, Ryan, is she took it, ran off, and found Ellie. Whereas in other even in the season and in other seasons, when you found the beware advantage, you either have to just make the decision right there. You can't show other people first and then. So I don't know. Maybe it's not a rule and we just assumed it was. What do you think of that?
So I think it's interesting. Over the last few seasons, most people find the beware advantage by themselves and they choose to open it right there or leave it right there. In this case, and I would need to think about another instance where somebody found it with somebody else. She ran away to go show Ellie. I guarantee you if she decided not to open it, I think she would have been told to put it back where it was because it says on the outside, either take it and do what it says or leave it. And I assume if she ran to go tell Ellie and Ellie says, you know what, how about you just leave it there for right now? I guarantee you the producers would have said, yeah, just go put it back where you found it, basically. That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm guessing she was always going to open it, so it was fine. And then, I mean, the most ridiculous thing is they're talking about how they can't tell anyone, specifically Owen, and then Owen walks and finds them. Survivor 101, if you're opening an advantage, if you're opening anything, any note, why are you opening it in a spot where it's even possible for Owen to be there at that time? It's just that was crazy. When was the last time we even saw that? I don't know.
Well, actually, what's funny? We probably have seen it a couple times. The one time that I remember always is when in Millennials Gen X, when Jay and Will found it, and Michaela walks up on them, and then Jay and Will are like, "All right, Michaela's got to go." So.
Yeah. It's funny because I was like, "Yeah, that was such a weird." And then they tried to play it off. They were they just put it away, and then he was like, "What was that?" And they didn't say anything. And they were like, oh, well, we had to tell him. Like, yeah, obviously you have to tell him at that point. Like that, yeah, it's like you have Ellie and Janine who are like, and a lot of people are tweeting about this. They're like the two that think they're like a power duo and think they are in charge and know everything going on. And they're, in my opinions, and based on what we've heard, I think they're still in the minority. So we'll have to see what's going on with them. Yeah, I don't even know. But the funny thing is that, so they were not allowed to, they didn't want it to get out to Owen, right? But then Ellie goes and tells Sammy about it. So now the entire tribe knows about it, right? So instead of just like confiding in Owen maybe and being like, oh, well, maybe there's a chance Owen won't tell the others because, you know, we screwed up already. She's like, all right, now I'm just going to tell Sammy. And now obviously the entire tribe's going to know, right? And then the whole thing with the beads again, Janine had to get everyone's bead. Obviously, Owen knows about it. Sammy knows about it. So it's not hard for her to get the beads. And then Gabler didn't know about the idol because he hadn't been told yet. And Gabler gives the bead. And how funny was that scene with Sammy and Gabler where he tells him, you just gave her an idol? Like, how funny was that? That was hilarious.
Oh my God. Out of all the tribes, this tribe is the messiest by far. And it was a very funny scene. We keep saying it. I don't understand why in this new era people have to share everything. And you're right, where episode 1, Ellie was in such a good spot, and she and Janine have completely played themselves into a very bad spot because we argued like whether, okay, well, should she have gotten rid of Mariah or Owen? And I think now you could argue she should have gotten rid of Owen because Mariah wasn't going to turn on the girls. So if they had gotten rid of Owen in episode 1, Ellie would have had Janine. She would have had Mariah. She still is really close with Sammy as an ally, and Gabler would have still been on the outs. And if Gabler plays his idol, which I still don't understand how they also don't realize that Gabler knows to play his idol. They think he is so dumb and it looks so bad on them. And even if Gabler was safe, then Mariah can go next. So Ellie has completely isolated the guys by looking through the bag with Janine. Sammy now goes and runs and tells Gabler everything that she says. Sammy's in the best spot now. And I cannot believe how bad Ellie and Janine have like fumbled this position for themselves.
Yeah, they're going to be a mess in the merge, especially because of what happened with Janine, and we'll get to that later. They're going to be a complete mess in the merge. I have no idea where this tribe's going heading forward into this merge. I would guess Owen, Sammy, and Gabler are going to stick together, and maybe they're going to try to pull in Ellie and Janine for the first few votes. But now Janine doesn't have a vote, and we'll get to that. It's just a complete mess. It was weird because they were calling Owen like a paranoid player, and we haven't seen any of that seemingly. Like he seems like completely opposite of that. So yeah, I want to see more of Owen. Now, we do remember that I believe the 3 that went to the quote unquote Shipwheel Island, or whatever people call it, was Owen, James, and Noelle, right?
So, episode 1 or last week?
No, whenever that happened, I think it was whichever the Noelle like episode where she got the steal.
Oh yes, when Nneka went home. Yes, it was Noelle. It was Owen and James. Yes,
right. And they seem to like really vibe and like really build trust. I think those 3 are going to do something at the merge, whether that means just vote the same side or have some sort of alliance. But I could see like if a first vote is coming together, right? That's like, to me, that's where the common link is, right? It's like, okay, you have James and then you have Noelle and then you have James, Noelle, and then Owen, right? And now James has Carla and Owen has Sammy. And then all of a sudden, I think you probably get
Dwight. Yeah.
Probably get like Janine on the outs, maybe something like that. That's how I see it going down, at least. Maybe Ryan on the outs, depending on if he wins immunity or not. We'll get to Ryan also. There's a lot to talk about.
I cannot wait to get to making all Ryans look bad. I cannot wait to get to this.
Yeah, let's get to the immunity challenge real quick, and then we'll get into that. Immunity challenge. Awesome watching Noelle compete again. Amazing every week in challenges. Ryan can't get his balls to lay on the perch, and then we figure out later after that he purposely threw the challenge out of nowhere. Where is this coming from? Why is he doing this? Your team was winning every week. You were about to go into the merge with big numbers. You were about to go into the merge with your biggest ally, and now you screw it all up. And it's funny because they had not been giving Ryan a lot of screen time before this. All you've really got was his backstory and that he's good at challenges and that he, what he's overcame in his life, which by the way is amazing. That being said, what was he thinking? This was like when somebody hasn't had the opportunity to play the game enough because their tribe keeps winning. And they're just like, they get impatient and they're just like, we have to do something. We have to make a big move. And like, there was no need for that. It was crazy. When he said that, I was like, oh, what are we getting into right now?
I texted you. This is literally him pulling a full Drew Christie, except he doesn't get voted out. Like, if anyone remembers Samuel and Del Sur, the Blue Tribe wins the first 3 challenges. Drew Christie is like, Kelly Wentworth has to go. She's a huge threat. Throws the challenge all by himself to get rid of her, and he gets voted out by the girls. Like, Ryan basically pulled almost a full Christie, except he didn't get voted out, and he got his closest ally voted out instead. I cannot believe the audacity of this man that he throws a challenge by himself, is hamming it up. We'll get to, after we get to the advantage stuff, we'll get back to Ryan, but he's hamming it up like, oh, I lost a challenge. I should go home tonight. I understand, but Cassie's going to go. And the look on his face when Gio went home was priceless. I cannot believe this guy threw this challenge so bad. I just don't even know what to say anymore. There's just so much bad gameplay this episode at this point.
Yeah, Kate. So I want to bring up a comment here. K Benia 2.0. Welcome back. You're always here. Great to see you. He says Gabler makes fun TV. So I know, Ryan, you've made a lot of comparisons to Gabon this season. You're like, but like, it's just a train wreck, at least up to this point. It could just be a pre-merge thing because there are a lot of good players left. But a lot of times when players are not as good at the game, it does make fun TV. So I'm curious to see like where this season goes and ends up, because like a lot of people some people think Gabon is just a terrible season, and other people like rank Gabon higher because they're like, all right, like it was a mess, but it was fun. I'm curious to see where this goes in terms of that. But yeah, there are fun players for sure. Maybe not the best of the game, but there are fun players.
Well, I mean, let me clarify. I do not want 18 game bots. I don't want 18 strategists. I want a mix of gamers, characters. I want a mix of people. So don't think when I say there's bad gameplay, don't assume that I just want all like raw gameplay. I do want these funny moments and these funny characters like Gabler and like Cody. All I'm just trying to say is that when we're looking at the strategy and we're looking to see, are people making optimal moves for their game, and people are making such bad moves in terms of Ryan throwing this challenge, in terms of Ellie telling Sammy everything and thinking that Gabler's a moron, and then what we're going to see next at the risk your votes thing. It's just all the time I'm like, these people just aren't thinking, and they're just making such poor optimal moves for their game. And you know what's funny? In the moment, when Ryan knocked the balls over, I thought at first he just genuinely messed up, because even Cassie was like, go to the right instead of going to the left. I'm like, how do you mess it up that bad? And then when he revealed, okay, well, I threw it on purpose, I'm like, okay, well, clearly, like, there's no way you could have messed it up that poorly unless you were intending to do that.
It's unbelievable. Like, I'm going back and like thinking of every single screw up in this episode or like decision that was made. And I'm like, is there a decision besides the vote out, which we said we think is the right choice? Was there any like decision that was made in this episode that was the right decision? Like, I feel like just people just kept making wrong decision after wrong decision. I enjoyed this episode, by the way. I want to say that I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good.
I thought it was a good episode, but I just think it was funny. It was a lot of funny stuff going on in that
the
episode.
Only people that made good moves this week, I would say, are Carla and James, and I guess you would say Sammy, because Sammy has positioned himself well in the I mean, Ryan, Gio, we're going to see Jesse later. Like just so many people are just making, Janine, people are making such bad moves. You know, honestly, I don't even want to say that they're dumb because it's mean. I'll say what Mike Bloom said. This cast is just messy. They are extremely messy.
Right. And I'm curious to see, like, is this something where, like, you know, they'll be given, like, you could have messy gameplay and recover. I'm just curious to see, like, which players will be able to recover from it and which players won't. Or if like a player who has kind of not dealt with any of these advantages or gone to any island or those people going to be of the most benefit. I'm curious. We'll have to see what happens. Like, is the right strategy, and I think we're still trying to figure this out, is the right strategy in this new format to go completely like be a risk taker or be risk averse? I'm curious to see which people, the risk averse players or the risk takers, are the people that do well in this season. And I think it honestly just depends on your spot. But
it does.
Yeah,
Like,
it really does. Like it depends on your spot, and we'll get to it with the as you called it, Risk Your Vote Island coming up.
Well, because the problem is I was going to call it like the big rock island that we saw week 1, but every single week they're changing up the location of it, so I can't call it a single name other than Risk Your Vote. But I mean, you're right, Dylan, though. I mean, it's really situationally dependent, because if you're going to tribal council that night, like for example when Chanel did it last season and when Cody did it this season, you don't want to risk your vote and the night you're going to tribal, because then you put yourself and your alliance in a really bad spot. If you're not going to tribal council, I'm all for risking it and taking a swing in the game, and then just don't tell people about it. But the problem is people are taking swings and telling people about it. They're taking swings when they shouldn't take swings. And that's what's just extremely frustrating.
Yeah. And let's get to this right here. So classic, same game we've been playing with these island games or other island games where they get shipped there, and then they basically have to decide whether they want to risk or keep. And the people that risk, they have either 1 and 2 or 1 and 1 or a 1 and 3 chance, depending on how many people keep or risk. We know, if you're listening to this podcast, you know how it goes by now. And Gio, made the right move. He was on the bottom. He was on the bottom. He was in trouble, even though it was funny because he made the right move to risk his vote because he was on the bottom and he got voted out. But he didn't knowingly make the right move, right? He told us that he was quote unquote acting like he was in trouble, even though he didn't think he was. So I think that's hilarious. Right. He was. So technically he made the right move to act like he was in trouble, to try to maneuver and get the advantage himself. He ends up getting the advantage anyway. The advantage couldn't help him because he did not know where the idol was, right? So, however, the big story here is about Jesse and Janine, who both chose to risk their vote and both lost. Jesse, let's get started with him, who I think Jesse's been a pretty good player so far, who happened to make a bad choice in this situation. You're in a tribe of 4 right now. Clearly they don't know a merge is coming right away. So you have to think from their perspective. If there had been another tribal immunity challenge before the merge, and again, they didn't know that the merge is coming next week. If Red happens to lose the challenge, then of course you're in trouble if you lose your vote, because there's only 4 left, and now you don't have a vote when there's only going to be 4 votes. So
Noel has to steal a vote, so you're a sitting duck at that point.
That's a crazy move to risk it. He gets lucky the fact that there is a merge next week, because he'll be able to probably get around it. Janine just did the beware advantage thing where she had her vote in danger. She was able to fight it off. And now she's like, I'm going to risk it again for no reason. What was the reasoning behind Janine risking it? They had already won. They were not going to tribal. You have an idol now. What's the point of risking your vote? And by the way, if you don't have, and I want to clear this up, if you don't have a vote, could you use your idol still?
Yeah, I don't think not having a vote is related to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they're definitely not correlated. I want to make sure, but still, it just didn't make sense. You have your idol. I wouldn't have called her in a good spot, but considering you just won your challenge and your team, your tribe is now on a streak where you have, you've rattled off a few in a row. Plus, that Gabler has an idol, right? Mm-hmm. So Gabler's not going home next time. So that leaves yourself pretty much a 1 in 4 chance if you guys were to go back. I don't see why that was necessary for her to risk it either.
I mean, if anything, again, next week's going to be weird because we don't know if it's a real merge, a fake merge. We don't know what's happening. But if anything, Janine, who has an idol, risking her vote, honestly puts her ally Ellie at even more risk because she can't help her out. And Steven and other people have said this too. Obviously, having an idol is a very powerful tool. Some people would argue even more important is your vote. The ability to vote, to show your alliance members that you're with them, to vote somebody out. Having a vote is maybe even more important than an idol in some ways. And I'm going to read off Mike Bloom's tweet because he summarizes it perfectly. Basically, Janine, who almost lost her vote that same day, risks her vote. Jesse, who saw what happened to Cody, risks his vote. And Gio, who bluffs that he's on the bottom, but he's actually on the bottom, risks his vote. I just don't understand what these people are doing. And then Dylan, you see that like in real time, we see that it's the wrong move, or we see that people are picking up on it, because I didn't catch this in the episode. I had to see somebody mention it on Twitter. Apparently when Janine goes to the group and she opens it in front of them and says, I don't have my vote, Sammy like taps Owen's leg like, oh, she doesn't have her votes. Like clearly Sammy's in with the guys. Like he knows Ellie and Janine are like, they're trying to be too sneaky. So Sammy was happy that she didn't get her vote. So that already looks even worse on her. And then you're right. You already said it, but like Jesse, if Noel and Dwight wanted, if they lost again, they could easily just pick him off if he doesn't have his vote now. And Noel has a steal vote. They could completely render they could completely render Jesse and Cody useless, because let's just say Cody had a vote, you could make the argument that if Noel and Dwight stole someone's vote, maybe Jesse would flip on Cody. Jesse is a very self-interested player. He would easily sell Cody out if it meant him staying. Like he would have no problem doing that.
But also Cody is an idol, so.
But true. But the point is that now that Jesse has risked his vote, you're now in a spot where if Jesse doesn't have a vote, he admits he doesn't have a vote. Cody has a vote and an idol. If Noel and Dwight wanted to next week, even though it's not going to matter, Dylan, they could steal Cody's vote. They now have 3 votes. No matter what Cody does with his idol, they could guarantee that one of the 2 of them go home. So I just don't understand some of the logic here.
Yeah, I could see Janine being in trouble next week at Merge because she doesn't have a vote. I think Jesse will be fine because he's proved himself to be FOMO over strategy.
I think this is right. People honestly are afraid not to play, and they're just going to keep playing hard even if it's messy.
Yes, this is 100% true. FOMO over strategy. Shout out Kay Bonilla for that pretty funny comment. That's definitely true. Yeah, I think Janine's in trouble next week without a vote at the Merge, but maybe not a Merge. Earn your way into the Merge. We don't know what it is. It's not an hourglass twist. That's what we know for sure.
Thank God.
Before we get to like what we think is coming next week. One other thing here that we didn't talk about is after this Risk Your Vote Island, we had a segment back on Coco before they went to Tribal, and Ryan was like crazy trying to sell that, like he was like trying to bluff so much that it made it so unbelievable that it just like didn't work. Like it was crazy. Like he was like, oh, you can vote me out, it's fine, you can vote me out. So like, all right, what's even the point of doing that? Like what do you gain from that? And his, I feel like I'm talking a lot. I feel like I'm like going back and forth on a bunch of things. It's because this is messy. That's why I'm like trying to process it all. Then let's not forget Ryan's performance at Tribal Council, where he kept stating over and over and over again when Jeff was giving it to him that he was going to quote unquote be fine with falling on the knife. Let me ask you, Ryan, is there any validity to acting like that? Is there any reason why you could see someone trying to act like that? Like, what did he think was going to happen out of that?
To answer your question, no, there's no validity to that. The biggest thing that I can say here is that it's not even like it worked. Like if Cassidy was really on the outs and he somehow convinced her to, vote for him, and like it was going to ruin her, it was going to like, basically if she voted for him and then that cost her going home or whatever, if it worked, it would have looked completely different. But Cassidy didn't buy it for a second. She's like, why are you acting like this? Like, you're just going to go home, or Gio will go home, which either way I'm fine with. It almost reminded me of Tocantins, where Coach was acting really, he was acting like Coach, and Aaron was like, who is this jackass? Like, it gave me big, like, that vibes where Cassidy's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, Ryan is not a player who's going to just fall on his sword. He's clearly hamming it up. And like, I mean, I thought, even though the vote seemed to be between Gio and Cassidy, it was not out of the question that they could have said, you know what? Let's just get rid of Ryan. He's going to be a threat later on anyway. And he's clearly not as stable of an alliance partner as he could be. I mean, again, I kept referencing Drew Christie. He almost got himself fully voted out this episode, but I guarantee you, Dylan, I guarantee you he's lucky that Gio got the advantage, because I want to explore a parallel universe where Gio either doesn't get sent to the island or doesn't get the advantage, because the main reason Gio went was because Carla probably wanted to get the advantage out of there. I guarantee you there's a strong chance Ryan could have went home tonight if those things didn't happen, and he would have gotten himself completely voted out.
And the other thing was Cassidy, knowing that her name was also being thrown out, she wanted to she wanted to make sure Gio basically was completely gone, and like in case he pulled out an idol or something, and then she would end up going home. So, wait, did she wanted to vote? I'm trying to think. They had that conversation. I'm trying to think exactly what happens. Where Cassidy. Yeah. Did she want Ryan out or did she want Gio out?
With Carla and James?
Yes.
So the whole thing that happened that made the Lindsay 2.0 comments, and also I do feel bad. I did watch, as a side note, Lindsay's exit interviews from last week, and she will admit that she did get paranoid, but she thinks that like the narrative that she went completely crazy is a bit overblown. Like there's more to the story that we didn't see. But anyway, the thing that happened with Cassidy was because of Ryan's stupidity, making all Ryans look bad. He this is why I didn't want to draft him, because I knew something like this was going to happen. But Cassidy wants to vote out Ryan instead of Gio, and Carla and James are like, no, well, we want to vote out Gio because Gio has an advantage and Gio's also threatening and he thinks he's running the show. And Cassidy's like, I don't know why you guys won't help me out. Like if your necks were on the line, I would want to help you guys out. So why won't you vote with me? And they're like, well, we want to vote Gio. She walks away. They're like, she's starting to get a little snippy and paranoid. Should we vote her out? It wasn't going to happen. But
so Ryan, what I was going to say is I confused that for a second. I was going to say, right. So she wanted Ryan out because she was afraid that Gio was going to take out an idol. So in a parallel universe where Carla does not know that Gio's advantage is not a threat to Cassidy, and she just like doesn't know anything, then I think it could have been Ryan going home, right? If that makes sense.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think in the end it could have been Ryan. Basically, I think that in the end Gio was going to go home no matter what. I think Ryan's chances of going home went down once Gio got the advantage. I think if Gio didn't have the advantage, it could have been maybe more of a tricky decision. But the way Gio was talking in these exit interviews, basically since he was viewed as one of the weaker members of the tribe, he was always in trouble anyway. So
right. Yeah, but let's throw it to next week.
Sure.
What do we think is going on next week?
13 people, Dylan.
Yeah, 13 people. I see in the comments right here, we have Christian who's suggesting that it could be a double elimination, possibly. I could see this being a thing where like one person wins immunity for the men, one person wins immunity for the women, and then it's like two people go home or something like that. I could easily see that. And yeah, I'm curious. Like, they're clearly not going to call it like a 13-person merge, right? No. It's going to be like something that happens, and then the merge will be at 12 or 11. I don't really know. What do you think is going to happen? I'm curious. I have no idea, honestly.
There is no way they are real merging because you don't merge at 13 when there's 18 people. Like, obviously, Cambodia, they merged at 13, but that's because there was 20 people to start. So you already lost 7 people. We have only lost 5 people. There is no shot they're merging. It's either going to be a fake merge. It's either going to be an earn the merge where, because there's no more hourglass. Jeff confirmed that. So it's either earn the merge where maybe Jeff says, okay, we're going to split you into 2 teams of 6. One person sits out, and maybe because Jeff sometimes does this, you can bet on the team that's going to win. And if you bet correctly, you're also safe. If you bet wrong, you're also in jeopardy. That is the most likely scenario to me, is that 2 tribes and then the loser tribe is vulnerable, vote somebody out, you merge at 12. That to me makes sense. It could also be like, who was that? That was Christian said it could be where it's a double elimination. That could be the case as well. Or it could be like a fake merge where Jeff says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do what we did in Gabon, ironically. We're going to make you think you're merging. We're going to send you back to two new tribes for only 1 tribal council, and then you guys merge after that. So we could see a number of scenarios play out next week.
Yeah, I'm curious. Now, Jay writes in the comments here. He says, my theory is that they firstly get everyone together to meet up and live on the same beach, randomly split them into 2 groups of 6 to compete in a team immunity challenge. I saw an idea like that thrown around for 41 and 42 when we were like, oh, what's the hourglass twist? What's it going to be? I think that's an interesting proposal almost, where like they split them into 2 tribes for like a vote or 2 and have them live on the same beach, and it would be like a one world type situation for like a vote or 2. I think that could be cool, or it could be like a future thing that they could do. Honestly, I think the most likely scenario is what you said, which is just they're going to split them into 2 tribes. One of the tribes is going to win. One of the tribes is going to lose. One person's going to sit out. They're going to be grouped in with either the winners or the losers. Maybe just because they draw the wrong rock, they're going to have to go to tribal council no matter what. And then they're either going to go back to the winners will either go back to a separate beach, or they'll all go to one beach, and certain people will be safe and certain people won't be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll merge after the vote, or it could be double elimination. I don't really know, but I think your scenario of what you said is most likely.
So yeah, I mean, not to read into the edit too much, I know that when they saw the camera flash there in the preview, I did see 2 color mats. So I do think they're going to split them into 2 in some ways. Again, whether Jay is correct and they do living on one beach and then they split them into 2 groups, whether Christian's right and they do a double elimination, I am not sure what's going to happen there, but in the end, there's no way they're doing a merge at 13 and they're not doing the hourglass. So it has to be some type of weird thing where either at 12 or 11, we get the official merge of these groups. So,
yeah, I agree. Just want to remind everyone, if you're watching, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Really helps us out, really helps this video. So thank you everybody for watching, especially given the fact that it's a Thursday and not a Wednesday right after the episode. But let's get to questions before we head off here for the week.
Sure.
Let's see what we got. All right, so we addressed Christian already. Andrew says hi. What's up, Andrew? Let's see what else we got here. So Andrew also asked, how's the person going to be picked to sit out? If it's a draw to 2 teams, I would guess it's just a random thing where like one person's going to like last season where it's like one person, like it was like rocks, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So very simply, they would do like in this case, 13 rocks, 6 blue, 6 red, 1 yellow. And if you draw the yellow rock, you're the one that's sitting out. And I think based on my theory, what they would do is they would say, okay, there's these 2 tribes. One of them is going to be vulnerable. Someone's going to go home. Person sitting out, you can bet on who you think is going to win. And if you bet the right tribe, you get to join them in safety. If you don't, you're vulnerable. But
yeah, I think that's around what it's going to be. K Benia,
this is a good question.
K Benia 2.0 wants to ask, did the bead brigade get corny? So he's talking about with the beads, having to get the idol with the having to get the beads to get the idol for the beware advantage. Did it get corny? I saw some people suggesting that Survivor, I believe it was, I want to say it was Dalton Ross. He said he thinks Survivor missed an opportunity to do 3 different challenges, like to get the idol. Whereas they just did the 1 bead challenge for every single tribe, and therefore it just was like by the 3rd one, it was completely monotonous. And really the only excitement that came out of it was the Cody vote, right? Or the time Cody found the beware advantage. Like that was great because it was right before tribal council. The others were like extremely anticlimactic.
So here's my thought process on it. And number 1, I think this is just a sorry, I was just meeting something. I think it's one of a couple things. Number 1, before I even get to the bead wear advantage, I saw this online. I feel like people are saying that after 3 seasons of the new era, even though there are some good things, we're starting to feel like everything now feels kind of like a carbon copy of each other, where people are, and I kind of agree with them, and Rob was saying this too. I'm kind of getting sick of 3 tribes. I want to go back to 2 tribes at some point because it gives more options. When you're on 3 tribes, there's nowhere to hide, and it makes it kind of tricky sometimes. I think 2 tribes is also fun. I also want to see a swap. I'm tired of seeing no swaps either. And I think if 44 follows the same formats, I have to just hope that basically 2 sets of 2. I have to hope 45 really shakes up the formula or kind of goes back to what it was, because I do agree where people are saying these things feel carbon copied, Dylan. And back to K Benia's point, some people were saying the first time we saw the beware advantage, it was awesome. You know, Cody was before tribal. It's a really great social advantage, like Tony and Extortion. It's really great to see. Then you see Carla, and it's like, okay, well, this is cool too. Carla did an amazing job by herself, but it's the same thing. Then you see this we have to see this a third time. Like, people wanted to see either a new type of social task on each beach where it's always different, so that's cool, or people are like, maybe every other episode or every 2 episodes we see this, because back to back to back, it's like we gotta see this again 3 times. So
also, I have to imagine that it was easier for Janine to do it because she had less people than Cody, right? And let's keep in mind that the one person that was not there on that tribe was Mariah, who, based on the way her personality is from one episode, it seemed like she could have been a difficult person to get the bead from. So I think that's an interesting thing also, is like, because there was somebody voted out already, it was, you had to get one less bead. It was maybe a little easier. So anyway,
I'm not gonna lie though, because Gabler had the whole thing about saving the bead for his daughter, I truly thought she wasn't going to get it. I was like, Gabler is not going to give this up, and then finally she got it.
That was funny. Jay says that he thinks that we should go back to a schoolyard pick in terms of like challenges, like for the merge. Like next week when they split into 2 instead of drawing rocks, it should just be a schoolyard pick. What do we think? I like that. I agree with that.
I like it too. I think it makes it more fair. And some people would say, oh, I prefer the randomness of it. But Dylan, we've seen some tribe swaps in Survivor where they are completely mismatched. And I would hate, and granted, Tom Westman has always said luck is a big part of Survivor. You can't control it. But I would hate to be in a earn the merge spots. I get randomly picked to be on a weaker tribe for sure. And then I'm maybe seen as a physical threat. But like I would rather do a schoolyard pick personally.
Yeah, I do agree with that for sure. All right, so we have one last question here also from Jay.
Oh, okay. Actually, I have one more question once you're done with that.
All right, cool. Jay says, do you guys think that they do have to go to Exile Island? Wait, hold on. Let me reread it. let me reread. Jay says, do you guys think that if they do have someone go to Exile Island, that they'd have a chance at getting an advantage in place of getting the Hourglass? I think it's possible that somebody goes to somewhere else at some point, right? That's for sure possible. Do I think they'll have an opportunity at an advantage? Maybe. Do I think they'll have an opportunity to shake things up in the game again? I think it's possible that they simply just change the Hourglass twist to the point where it's not called an Hourglass and it's not the same exact thing. But I do think it's possible that the person that gets sent off could have a decision to make that could impact the game, but not as in drastic of a way as last time where the challenge just gets invalidated, because that would make no sense, right? So I think that type of thing could happen. I think it could just get corrected.
I think it's possible. I think the backlash from both the players and the fans was so bad from the Hourglass. I just think it's going to be either someone just sits out and that's it, or somebody does get an advantage. Dylan, I hope if it's an advantage, I hope it's an idol, because you will hear me screaming next week if they put knowledge's power back in the game. Like, oh, it went out too soon. Let's put it back. Ugh, no. But no, I think that's going to happen with the sit outs. And then I know we have to go soon, but the last question I saw from K Benia is what will happen when everyone knows about the beads? This is a good question too, because I saw this on Twitter today, and people were, I think it was Shannon Gus. Shannon was like, at this point, it's open season for the beads. Because if you think about it, Dylan, everybody in the game knows about the beads now. And and these players are smart, basically, they're going to know that if we have an idol bracelet advantage, the other tribes are going to have that too. So basically, when you have that, it's like, what is it called? Like basically now Shannon said, now that the whole yellow tribe knows about the Be Weird advantage, you have big ramifications. Now, basically you have people in the game where you have 8 people out of 13 know about it. The only people that don't know about it, I think, is James. If Carla didn't tell James, Ryan didn't know about it. And Cassidy doesn't know about it.
And Noelle
and Dwight don't know about it. So 5 out of 13. Everybody else in the game knows about a bead idol. So if that knowledge keeps going around, it makes it even more crazy at the merge. So
yeah, everyone's gonna eventually know where that the idol is with Carla, right? Because they're gonna know once somebody from yellow tells somebody in blue what the idol was, they're gonna all know that Carla asked for the bead.
Because guess what? Because here's what I'm saying. I think Carla's in a great spot, and I hope Carla goes far in this game because I always root for the best player. What if, Dylan, there's a scenario where, because the Yellow Tribe is messy as hell, Sammy or Gabler or somebody says to James or Cassidy, hey, Janine has an idol. Oh, how does she have an idol? Oh, she asked for beads from us. And then James and Cassidy go, she asked for beads? Like, this could blow up. I mean, Cody's already in a kooky, weird spot, but like Carla could be in danger here if word gets back that that's how she got her idol. So,
yeah. And I think bringing this up is, one, it's something I haven't thought about yet. And two, it's a reason why I don't necessarily like these Beware advantages as idols, right? Because are we ever going to see a day again where nobody knows about someone's idol? Like, nobody knew about Marianne's idol last season, and she didn't have to play it. But like, other than that, like, I do not like that it's almost impossible for Carla to prevent people from knowing about her idol. You know what I mean? Like, she tried to make it happen, but inevitably it's going to be screwed over by the other tribes having the same thing on their beach. So
yeah,
it's like, at least if you had switched up the challenges, then it was like nobody else would have had beads and nobody would have been able to out Carla as the person who has it, right?
Yeah.
It still would have been up in the air as well, like, oh, what was the challenge on your beach? And it was like, well, they wouldn't have known because the beads was like a subtle thing, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that's another thing is like next season, hopefully, I don't think it'll happen next season because they didn't have time to correct it before they filmed. But like, I would hope that they make it 3 different challenges next time, at least if they're going to do Beware advantages, so that this type of thing cannot happen again.
Look, all I'm going to say is that you're right. They could certainly fix it next season, but I will take 3 different beads over the silly phrases. So I will always take that.
I do agree with that. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Ryan? Otherwise, I think we could wrap up and head to next week.
Yeah, no, so far I'm enjoying the season. I was talking to some of my friends and they were saying how they thought the season started a little bit slow because it feels very similar to 41 and 42 off the bat. But I think this episode and last episode, both with a blind side of Lindsay and a blind side of Gio, I think the last 2 episodes have been good. I thought last episode was the best of the season because we had the camp raid, we had no advantages, we had no backstories. It was just classic Survivor, and I love last week. I thought this week was good too. Just it was a little advantage heavy, but no, I think the pre-merge started a little slow. It picked up towards the back half, and if we have the fake merge or whatever next week, I think it should be interesting.
Yeah, I think it is going to pick up for sure. But yeah, next week we will let you know what the programming plan is. There's a chance that we will be on Thursday again. And if so, we'll let you know. But yeah, thank you to everybody for watching live and looking forward to next week.
And as always, I was going to make a Chuck E. Cheese joke, and I was like, what do I say for Chuck E. Cheese? But basically, God, Sammy he tries to not be 19, but he definitely comes off as being 19. But anyway, we're done with Chuck E. Cheese. So grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.